Hello and welcome to Fallon Moran Radio. We are going to be talking about zero-based budgets today and why I think that they're super effective for you to use when you're creating a budget. So let's dive in. Now, a lot of you here are more than likely entrepreneurs and you're like, well, why do I even need a zero-based budget? Well, zero-based budgets can be super effective in terms of how you are utilizing every dollar. So when I paid off all of my massive amounts of debt, because back in 2023, I paid off over $25,000 of credit card debt, I was using, at the end of the day, a zero-based budget. And so that is the power of zero-based budgets because, and this is super important, and I said this in my Substack post, and I'm going to say it here, every dollar has a job. And when every dollar that you have coming in has a job, then you have true cash flow. And when every dollar has a job, like let's just say you have 10% going to assets, right? Then when you have 10% going to assets, you have a way to create wealth and you don't have to actively do it. Okay. So that's why zero-based budgets can be incredibly effective and incredibly useful because when you have a goal financially, when every dollar has a job, then you can achieve that goal faster. Now, I'm going to say this because it's super important to note that a lot of where your money goes in a zero-based budget is also, it comes down to habit. Like, are you somebody who invests? Are you somebody who spends recklessly? Are you somebody who donates to other people? Are you somebody who's going to save more of it because you don't feel safe unless you have a certain amount of money set aside? Those four habits, we'll get into that in a different podcast episode, but they are going to drive what your budget is going to look like. They might drive the percentages, they might drive the spending, they might drive the saving. You understand what I mean? At the end of the day, every dollar has a job in a zero-based budget because essentially, to make it super simple for you to understand, every dollar that you have coming in has a job to go out. And when we're applying this to a business, then you have true cash flow. And when you're also thinking about it in terms of a business perspective, then you also have a way to create an expense, which is going to lead to potentially a tax deduction. And you want to have those tax deductions because the number one biggest thing that you're going to spend your money on is going to be taxes. Taxes are going to suck up all the money before anything else. So the more you can create a deduction for yourself, the more that you can follow the guidelines as to what you spend on so that it is a deduction, the less you have to pay in taxes. Let's take an example really fast. Let's say that you have a W-2 job, a 9 to 5 job, right? And you're a babysitter on the side. You have your own babysitting, business. And your babysitting business you have set up as you're working as basically like a solopreneur, right? So you're doing it as not an LLC, not something where you would have to necessarily file a business tax form, but you're going to add it into your 1040. Okay. If you're listening from a different country like Canada, you're going to have different tax forms. You're going to have a different way of going about filling out your taxes. I'm going about this in terms of American taxes. Okay. So let's say that you have your 9 to 5 and then you're doing a babysitting job on the side, right? When you go to file your taxes, let's say your 9 to 5 job, you make $50,000 a year. Okay. You're going to get taxed normally as you would as an employee. Okay. You're going to get probably upwards of maybe close to 50% taken out at the end of the day from your 9 to 5 job. But let's say in your babysitting business, that you go when you're done from work, you go back home, you clean up, you freshen up, but then you go from your house to your babysitting job, right? If you were to go to the gas station on your way to the house that you babysit, you could use that as a potential deduction. In addition to that, if you get your tires done, if you get your, oil changed, you could also effectively use your car payments towards the tires, not necessarily the car payment itself, right? Because you're using the car for multiple things. If you're using the car to drive to the W-2 job and you're using your car to go to the babysitting job, you can't really deduct the car payment. That's not allowed. But if you got the tires done and you got the oil change done and you're using the car and you're going to get the tires done on the way to the babysitting job or coming home from the babysitting job, or you're getting gas or you're getting the oil change, then you could potentially use those payments as a deduction because you're still using the car to get to your job. And that car is allowing for you to have this side hustle or this, solopreneur business, if you will. So there is a potential for you to deduct those particular things that you spent money on from what you would ultimately pay in taxes, your big, at the end of the day, tax bill, right? Now, let's say, you're still this babysitter, right? But let's say that you're at the house and, you realize, oh, if I had this planner, then it would help me organize when I can go to my babysitting gigs, right? And you decide, okay, while you're watching these kids, you're going to place an order on Amazon for a planner. That planner becomes a tax deduction because number one, you're on the job. Number two, you're using it for your business. And number three, it's technically considered office supplies. So you could go into that particular, tax deduction, and you could, take that off of what you're going to essentially pay for at the end of the day. This is turning into a tax lesson. I want to go back to zero-based budgets. At the end of the day, if you have your W-2 and your babysitting gig, and let's just say both of those together bring a combined $5,000 in income into your pocket, then when we go to create our expenses, we want our expenses to ultimately go from $5,000 coming in to $5,000 coming out. So it's even. So at the end of the month or the week or whatever you have your budgeting frequency on, you're at zero. Because when you have every dollar having a job, then that dollar is going to go towards your debt, or it's going to go into an asset, or it's going to go someplace that you know that you need for it to go to be able to do what you need to do. And ultimately, this is really another important thing that creates cash flow. We want cash flow because you don't want to hold on to money. Because if you hold on to money, what happens? You get taxed on it. So when you have $0 at the end of the week, the month, the year, whatever it is, you don't get taxed on those dollars because you have zero left. So that's why it's super effective and important, not just for personal finances, but also for your business finances. Because when you have every dollar going out in a job, then it will not create a tax payment. So what is an effective way for you, or what are effective percentages potentially for you to put your money towards in a zero-based budget? All of this is going to be up to you. There's a really good book. It's called The Psychology of Money, and it explains how money is essentially just habits. How you are with your money boils down to, at the end of the day, how you are habitually as a person. And we could go into the other dynamics here of, okay, cost of living, and okay, geographically where you're located, then it's going to affect cost of living and price points and everything. Yes, we can go into that. That's way more in depth than what this is. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to feel comfortable and secure and safe with the amounts that you've set aside. So I'm going to just use myself as an example. Back in 2023, when I paid off all of that debt, over $25,000 of credit card debt, what happened was I took a majority of my income, probably upwards of 55% if I have to go through and do the numbers right now, and I put it towards my debt. That was how I was able to do it. Because if you think about it, that's almost $2,000 a month going right to debt, which is insanely high. And I was living with my mom at the time. So the only really two things that I had to pay for, maybe three, were my car and the insurance. So the car and the car insurance, and formula, if I needed to pick up formula for Penelope, which Penelope was breastfed for 6 months. So I didn't really spend a whole lot of money on formula. I spent maybe 6 months worth of money on formula. So anything that I needed to get for Penelope, food or milk wise, that was my next payment. And then if I needed to buy myself underwear or socks, whatever the case may be, to, take care of myself, I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have to pay for electric. I didn't have to pay for gas because I was working for a company that covered the gas in my car. But I was paying for the things that I was using for myself or caring for and nurturing myself. So that is how I was able to put more money aside. Now, did I put a portion of my money aside for assets? Yes, I did. It was not 10%. It was like, 1%, maybe even like a half a percent. But I felt that it was still really important that I put money aside into my investments because it comes down to, like I said, the habit. And even when you have very little money, it is important to put money into an asset because the only thing that you really own at the end of the day is going to be the asset. The asset is going to be compounding in interest and compounding in money and value over the course of time because an asset averages an 8% return. Now there's differences in terms of where you're putting it, if it's in, public stocks or if it's in private equities. There's different conversation for a different day, but at the end of the day, if you put any money into an asset, then you're going to see a return on that money versus the dollar that you have in your pocket right now. It is inflating currently. And last year alone, the dollar lost 10% of its value. So that is why it's super important that you have every dollar having a job, because when every dollar has a job, whether it's paying off debt or putting food on the table or putting the roof above your head or compounding money in and of itself, then what you're doing is you're allowing for growth of finances over time. Now let's back up a second, because sometimes what you might find is that you're going to spend on something that is considered an investment, like maybe a coaching program or a course or a digital product, and you're going to be like, well, I just spent money on that and now I'm in debt. Let's just say it's a $37 digital product. Or you know what? Let's even better. Let's just use my $27 Notion template that I have available as a digital product in my Stand store. Okay. You are looking at my digital product as something that you're spending money on. It's something that's going to put you in the negative. However, there's two main reasons why it actually is not putting you in the negative. Number one, it's a tax deduction. Okay. You can use that for your business. And then at the end of the year, if you were to go and you were to say, oh yeah, I use this template for, 70% of the year, and I bought it in March, 70% of the year, I use this template for my business to run my business, okay, because it has all of the tasks and the offers and the project management included in there, then you could effectively take that $27 and deduct it from your business taxes at the end of the year, okay? Just saying. Number two, what you are also doing is investing in yourself. That's more of like the coaching and, the courses kind of thing. It's an educational expense. You can still deduct it from your taxes. But when we're looking at investing in yourself, you're actually not losing money. You're actually not in the negative. And I know that that's a double negative, and the subconscious mind is like, whoa, double negatives. However, it's really important for you to hear this. When you invest in yourself, while it may seem like money has been taken from you, it has actually helped you acquire a skill and learn a lesson. And the reason why that's super important is because now, when you go in the future to purchase something, whether it's a coaching course or, a digital product based course or whatever the case may be, then you take those lessons and you take that, you know, learning, that knowledge, that skill with you into what you are doing. Okay. So let's just say, for the sake of an example, you bought a course on Facebook ads. Okay. You learn everything from that course about Facebook ads. It costs you, I don't know, $1,200, right? You might be like, oh, well, now I'm $1,200 in debt and I put it on my credit card and I'm paying interest. Yeah, paying 30% interest sucks. Like, it sucks. I have been there. I am still kind of there. It sucks. And now I have a skill out of that, the Facebook ads skill, that I can go on to Facebook ads for myself and I can start putting ads out for my books, my courses, my digital products, my coaching, right? You can take that skill and apply it forward. And you also have a lesson. Like, you also have something that you learned out of that, where, okay, you might have spent the $1,200 and it wasn't the coaching course that you were looking for. It was just a module course, right? But now I don't like working on my own to learn something. I like working with people to learn something because you like to have that back and forth. You like to have that hot seat coaching or that Q&A. Now you know, okay, when I go to make an investment in the future, I know that I want to work with someone. I know that I want to hear their perspective. I know that I want to hear their direction, or maybe I want someone to call me out on my crap so that I don't find myself in the downward spiral of me learning Facebook ads and then doing nothing with it. Because when I work with someone, then someone's going to be like, listen, what I see you doing right now is you're getting in your own way because you're afraid to put your words onto an ad and then post it because you don't want to stir the soup or stir the pot, whatever the phrase is. That coach will effectively call you out on it and say, if you want to get where you want to go, you got to say what you got to say. And if people like it, great, you're going to go where you want to go. And if people don't like it, those aren't your people. And I had to have that conversation a few times. Okay. So that's why, even though it feels like you're going in the negative, it's not, because you're actually acquiring value and skill for yourself. And the best thing that you can do is invest in yourself, because at the end of the day, the person who's going to push your income, push your limits, push your life forward is you. So it's important that you take responsibility for it. Okay, back to the zero-based budget thing. Every dollar has a job. What comes in and what goes out at the end of the day is zero, whether it's the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, end of the year. You have spent every dollar. Okay, that's a zero-based budget. I got a little sidetracked, and I'm sure you heard it. I still think that those sidetrack conversations are still very valuable and relevant in the conversation. And if you're interested in more of those kinds of episodes, then be sure to let me know in some way, shape, or form, whether it's an email, whether it's a direct message, whether you're talking to me on the phone, whether it's through Telegram, whatever the case may be. Even a rating and review on the podcast, because that's what helps the podcast grow. I have encouraged it on every episode, and I will continue to encourage rating and reviews because that is how the show grows. And also, I would love to do the spotlight episodes once a week. So be sure to leave your rating and review for the podcast down below. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to let me know if you have used a zero-based budget and what you have found to be effective when you are creating your percentages for yourself. Is it 10% to assets? Is it, 50% to debt or expenses? Let me know what you feel comfortable with, and let me know if you enjoyed this video. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I'm sure you see the podcast studio looks a little different. We moved the computer and the microphone and everything upstairs. And this right here, if you're watching on YouTube, is actually really awesome. I can't wait to put it up. I'm really excited because now we're in a room and I have light right here and I don't have, like boxes behind me. So I'm really excited. We're going to get the podcast studio looking real good. So be sure to stay tuned, and okay, thanks. Love you. Bye.